What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. I am Ken, here today for a very exciting video. Like I talked about on my top 10 steelbooks, I'm going to be doing a lot of top 10 lists as we close out 2021, and I'm going to continue that on today with, like I said, probably the most exciting of the ones that I'm getting ready to do, and that is my top 10 4K UHD transfers of 2021. So many great releases that came out this year, guys. There's probably anywhere from 150 to 200 new 4K transfers that came out this year between the new release films, the new theatrically released films that came out in 4K, the new studio catalog titles, the boutique titles that came out. We're going to cover them all here today on this video. But before I get into it, guys, I want to ask that if you are not yet a subscriber of the Mid-Level Media channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button for more great content. I do all kinds of stuff on this channel, mostly centered around the world of physical media. Do 4K and Blu-ray releases. I do Blu-ray out and about videos. I do reviews. I do collection hauls. I do top 10 lists like this. Definitely consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, be sure to like this video and comment down below, guys. Of course, our lists are not going to be the same. You can't expect them to be, like I said, 150 to 200 new 4K releases. Maybe that's a little bit high. Maybe it's more like 100 to 150, but you can't expect with that amount of new 4K releases that we're gonna have the same list. It's gonna be different. So in that comment section below, guys, I want you to sound off and let me know your top 5, your top 10, your top 15. If you got a top 20 you wanna share, leave it in that comment section below and let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion, a civil discussion about some of the greatest 4K UHD transfers of 2021, because there was a lot of them, guys. It's a very difficult list to make. I kind of knew what my top 4, top 5 was going to be, but when I got into the later ones, I was switching stuff around left and right, just trying to figure out why I would put this higher than something else. And that's another thing with this video, guys. I am not just strictly going off what was the best, visual quality, what was the best audio quality. I'm taking into account multiple criterias: audio, visual, special features, packaging, everything that I usually talk about in the review is going to be taking those into account, and also just overall enjoyment that I have while watching this. How did I like rewatching the movie for the first time in 20 years on 4K or 15 or 10 or however long it's been. Just overall enjoyment, just overall experience of actually watching that film, because sometimes I feel like when we're watching these new 4K transfers, Blu-ray transfers, whatever, we kind of get lost in the technical aspects of it and don't really focus on the film itself. And that's why I'm a movie fan. That's why I love this stuff. So I'm going into the overall enjoyment of the film and just my experience with it, hype level, how did it deliver versus my expectations. Just all that stuff was taken into account when I did this top 10 list. So I don't want to keep rambling on. Let's get into the top 10. But before I do that, I already lied to you. I said I'm going to get into top 10. I'm not getting into top 10 just yet. I'm going to cover some honorable mentions. The first honorable mention, which I forgot to bring over here, is I guess I could cut and go grab it real quick. But the final countdown on 4K would probably have ended up in my top 10 had I not covered it in another video. I covered that one in the top 5 or 5 Blu-ray releases in 2021 that I thought were super underrated. So I put that one in there. So that's not going to be included in this top 10, even though it probably should be. So I do want to acknowledge the final countdown. Another reason, it's a very pricey title, and it's one that I struggle to recommend sometimes because it is so high up, $40, $50 range. So it's a great transfer, though. It's definitely one of the best of the year. So my other honorable mention would be Speed on 4K. The hype level for this was up to here. It's a movie I hadn't seen in 15 years. I loved it when I was a kid. It definitely delivered on the transfer. It was a really great transfer by Disney. Definitely very much anticipating Heat on 4K whenever it decides to come out, because Disney's putting that one out as well. So Speed on 4K absolutely delivered, but it wasn't enough to get into my top 10. Another one that came out right at the beginning of the year that I really enjoyed, and after I watched it in 4K, actually moved up on my Carpenter list. It's probably solidified in my top 5 Carpenter films now, and that's They Live on 4K. So it's a great transfer by Scream Factory, and this was definitely the prelude to the greatness of what Scream Factory would do in 2021 with their 4K transfers, which we're definitely going to talk about a little bit more here in a second. So They Live on 4K, though, was good enough to get into my honorable mentions. Really fun John Carpenter movie. I love that movie. I also got A Clockwork Orange that made my honorable mentions. A great transfer but it just wasn't. This was the one I struggled with to maybe put in the top 10 or not. I really enjoyed this 4K transfer. I thought it was pretty great. So Clockwork Orange is in my honorable mention. So let's get into the top 10 4K transfers of the year, because that's what you guys are here for, right? That's what you came to see. And I don't know if you came to see this number 10 title show up in my top 10, but I just couldn't leave it out because it really surprised me when I watched it, just how great of a job Universal did with this transfer. It shocked me, to be honest. And it's not a great movie. It's from the 80s. Kind of silly. It's maybe the first Marvel movie ever made, though, and that's Howard the Duck. And yeah, like I said, maybe a little bit of a shocking choice, but this transfer was really immaculate. Like, I joke about it all the time on the channel, on live streams and stuff. But like the duck feathers on Howard the duck boobs, just how they looked in 4K, it looked incredible. Like, everything about this movie looked absolutely fantastic. It was a little lacking in special features and stuff, but I do like the artwork on it, just the classic Howard the Duck. The movie's not the greatest, but like I said, this transfer really surprised me, really kind of blew me away. So I had to have it break into my top 10 just off of that alone. And I really did enjoy rewatching this one. It had been probably since I was 10 years old since I've seen Howard the Duck. So I really enjoy watching this one. It's a little bit of an off choice. I understand that. But I reviewed this one. I gave it pretty high marks when I reviewed it. It was a pretty good price as well. The steelbook that came out with it was a nice steelbook also. But yeah, Howard the Duck, it's a good transfer. I recommend picking up that 4K. So I know that a lot of you guys probably wouldn't have that in your top 10, but I thought it was good enough to be in my top 10. So let's get into my number 9, and I'm going to be including sets in this as well. So there's going to be multiple movie sets that I'm counting as one slot. So just know that as we get into this next one. But my number 9 is the 4K Universal Classic Monsters Collection. And every time Universal does one of these sets, whether it's Back to the Future, whether it's the Alfred Hitchcock Collection, they absolutely knock it out of the park. I know it's controversial, but I really like this packaging. I really like this packaging that they use right here, just kind of with the envelope style. And I know, like I said, I know a lot of people don't like how they have to pull the disc out and it scratches them or whatever, but if you're careful, it works. And I like the fold out pages. I like how they have the classic posters in there, and they've done this with pretty much all of their Universal releases. The Alfred Hitchcock Collection I was a big fan of as well, as far as the packaging. And, you know, just getting into how these looked in 4K. I watched 3 out of 4 of them. I watched The Wolfman, I watched Dracula, and I watched Frankenstein. And I haven't got around to The Invisible Man yet, but these looked fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And for all of these, I think that I'm going to talk about here today, I've done individual reviews for. So if you go on my 4K review playlist, you should be able to find most of these. So I'm not going to go like too in depth on everything because I already covered it all before, but I thought the transfers on these were immaculate. They looked fantastic. Definitely quite possibly the best black and white transfers I've seen yet. Psycho was pretty damn good too, but I thought these were fantastic. So the Universal Classic Monsters Collection is my number 9. Getting into my number 8, guys. This was another one that kind of just really surprised me and blew me away, and I just had such a great time revisiting this movie. Hadn't seen it in years. That's the Shawshank Redemption on 4K, put out by not Universal, Warner Brothers. Put this one out, and this one came out around the same time as A Clockwork Orange, and you know, I was kind of trying to decide, do I put this one, Clockwork Orange? But Clockwork Orange definitely more flashy, like visually, so that helps it a little bit. But I just thought overall, just across the board, this was just an immaculate 4K transfer. It looked absolutely fantastic. The facial detail, just everything about this movie looked great. I really loved revisiting this film. I hadn't seen it probably since I was 15, so it'd probably been almost 20 years since I watched the movie. Absolutely love this movie. I still like The Green Mile a little bit more as far as Frank Darabont films, but I love this movie. So I had a great time watching it, and the 4K looked great. So this is my number 8, The Shawshank Redemption on 4K. So getting into my number 7, guys, is one I didn't see a lot of people talking about. Saw some people post about it. Didn't see a ton of reviews, but I did a review on my channel. Again, you can go check it out. This is an absolute fantastic release as far as packaging. Second Sight put this out. Like I said, I'm going to be having some boutique on this list, and that is The Guest on 4K. I thought the transfer on this was a really great transfer. There's definitely ones on here that were better than this one. So, but you can't leave this one out. This is just one of the best 4K releases of the year, just based off of this packaging alone. Absolutely fantastic packaging. Again, already done a review, did a full unboxing, but the artwork, the booklet, just the care that Second Sight puts into this set is really second to none. No pun intended, but yeah, it's just a spectacular release. Like, I just love the glossiness of the packaging. It's just such a great release, and I love this movie. This is like one of my favorite movies of the 2010s, so this was a no-brainer when this one came out. So yeah, The Guest on 4K is my number 7 release of 2021. So getting into my number 6, there was a little bit of controversy with this one regarding the steelbooks when they came out, but I didn't get the steelbooks, so I didn't experience that controversy. I only experienced extreme joy watching all of these movies for the first time since I was a teenager, so it felt like the first time in 4K. It was such a fun weekend. I binged them over 2 days. I just had a hell of a time watching them. And that's the Indiana Jones 4-film collection. And yes, I said I enjoyed watching all 4. Even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, I had a good time rewatching. So yeah, Indiana Jones 4-movie collection. I think that this is the definitive packaging of that 4K release. I know people liked the steelbooks, but it didn't come in great packaging. It was like all crumbled up. They had the freaking spider, the spider holder thing in stores that was like crunching it in. But yeah, this is just a fantastic release. I love it. And yeah, look, you open it up right there. It's got all that cool stuff inside. I thought these looked fantastic in 4K. Like I said, it just felt like watching these movies for the first time. I had such a fun time just rewatching them. Like I said, I had only seen them once before in my entire life. It wasn't like a trilogy that I remember rewatching a lot, like Back to the Future, Star Wars, any of those. Like, I'd only seen them once when I was a teenager. I thought they were okay. And then just rewatching them, I just got sucked into this adventure. Every single one of them I loved. Temple of Doom was my absolute favorite. And like I said, I even liked the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. So the Indiana Jones 4-movie collection is my number 6 4K release of 2021. So let's get into my top 5, guys. And I have got a really nice top 5, if I do say it so myself. And the first one that I've got for you, coming in at number 5, is Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver in 4K, put out by Sony as a part of the Columbia Classics box set. Now, I will say, I do think this is one of the best 4K transfers of the entire year, hands down, but you have to buy that whole set, which is going for, it's pretty cheap right now. It's about $91. And there are 5 other 4Ks in there, but if you just want Taxi Driver in 4K, I would still recommend that you hold off. This is not worth $90. If you have no interest in the other titles, this isn't worth $90. But it is one of the best 4K releases of the year. This movie absolutely blew me away. It wasn't the first time that I'd seen it, but it's the first time I'd seen it in probably like 5 years. So I just got sucked into the story. The performance of Robert De Niro is fantastic. And this 4K transfer, like I said, is absolutely immaculate. I really enjoyed rewatching this movie in 4K. So Taxi Driver is my number 5. So let's get into my number 4, guys. We're going to get into a little bit more boutique. Actually, I think most of these that we're finishing out with are boutique, which just goes to show you how great a work some of these labels are doing in 4K. And the first one, and I said it in my review, I said this is maybe one of the best 4Ks, if not the best 4K release of the year. Obviously had to reflect, think about some other ones that I saw. Enjoyments, special features, all that stuff takes into account as well. But this is Dario Argento's Deep Red in 4K. And I thought that this looked absolutely fantastic. Like, the colors that are used in this movie. Suspiria is his most colorful film as far as like visually colorful, but Deep Red is right up there with it. Just the use of red in certain sequences and scenes in this movie. I thought this is absolutely fantastic. My experience with it was great. This is now probably my favorite Dario Argento film. The packaging on this, I do like a lot. I love the work that Arrow has done into the Argento packages, but I don't love how muted the colors are. I don't love, like, they do matte finishes on a lot of their releases, but this just looks extremely dull, and I wish it was a little bit more lively as far as the packaging. But again, they got booklets, they got cards in this thing. It looks fantastic. It's a great release by Arrow Video. This isn't the only time Arrow Video is going to pop up on this list. They're coming very shortly, but Deep Red, again, one of the best 4K releases of the year. If you've never seen this movie before, if you're a fan of horror, if you're a fan of giallo films, 70s Italian films, it might be a little bit off-putting for you at first, but I think that you'll really enjoy this movie. Highly recommend this 4K transfer. So that's my number 4. Let's get into my number 3, guys. And I absolutely love this movie. Just like I said with They Live, like I think I've got some Carpenter coming up on the list as well, but I think that this, I go back and forth all the time. This might be my favorite John Carpenter movie. It just might. I don't know. It just might. That's the thing. And this movie on 4K, guys, oh my God, it blew me away. It blew me away. I had such a great time watching it. This is the one that came out like right at the beginning of the fall season. There was so much promise. There was so much excitement. There was so much anticipation for what was to come. This is the first big title for me that came out. I know Zack Snyder's Justice League came out the same day, but I don't really care about that. I cared about The Thing on 4K. Picked this up, watched it that night. I thought it looked great. Like the practical effects, like they absolutely just held up in 4K. They look stunning. Just everything about this movie looked great. This packaging, I know it's the classic poster, but it just looks so good with the 4K banner at the top. It shines, it's glossy. I love everything about this release. I know some people really love that steelbook. Couldn't find the steelbook in store, so I'd settle with the slipcover, but I really enjoy this slipcover, guys. Really thought this is one of the best 4K transfers of the year. Out of all the studios that put out catalog titles this year in 4K, this is the best, in my opinion, because my next two are boutique Blu-rays, so this is the best. You may disagree. I know there was a lot of great catalog releases this year. Probably a lot of new movies that you might disagree on, but I thought The Thing on 4K was the best catalog title of the year that was put out by a studio. So The Thing on 4K is my number 3. So let's get into my number 2, guys. And without further ado, I've been talking this one up all year long. I've been recommending it. And this has been one of the coolest things, I think, since I've started my channel, is the fact that I recommended this one so strongly, so early on in the year, before like anybody reviewed this or even talked about it. And I get so many people that call my channel out. I'll watch other people's videos and stuff and say that they picked this up because of me, and that makes me feel really good. Or I'll see people post it on Instagram. They'll be like, I picked this up because Mid-Level Media recommended it. It's just a really cool feeling because like I don't get up here and talk to you guys for nothing. Like I do want my opinion and my voice to matter. So the fact that some of you guys picked this up based on my recommendation is just awesome, and just that's the reason why I do this. I just like to point you guys in the direction of just really cool releases and just really awesome stuff to buy physical media wise. So that is the Django on 4K, guys. I had a hell of a time watching this movie. I thought it was fantastic. It was so cool. You know, Quentin Tarantino obviously was inspired by this when he did his Django film with Jamie Foxx, but it's not the same story. They're actually very different. But again, like I had so much fun watching this movie. He's like hauling around this big machine gun turret in a coffin. There's this great final sequence, like standoff. It's a great Western. It really makes me excited for Western Month coming up on the channel, which will be starting here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, Django on 4K. This is, oh my God, guys. The ones I'm getting ready to talk about for my number 1 are my number 1 for a reason, but this is definitively the best transfer of the year. Oh my God, like the facial detail on Franco Nero in this movie is just, oh my God. Like I was just watching this, I couldn't believe this was made in the 60s. Arrow just killed it with this release. They absolutely killed it. So Django on 4K is my number 2, guys, without a doubt. Like I said, I just had such a great time. You get a bonus movie with this release as well. And it's the full treatment for Arrow right here. You get the 4K, you get the booklet, you get the poster, you get the cards, just all that stuff. Great special features in this release. And yeah, this is a great transfer, guys. One of the best of the year, hands down. If you don't have Django in your collection, you have to. You have to. It's one of the best. If you want to see what your 4K TV can do, if you want to see what your equipment can do, get Django. Promise you, you will not be disappointed. So let's get into my number 1. And you guys probably know what these are. Like these were definitely, along with what Friday the 13th box set was last year, this was definitely the most anticipated release of the year when it got announced in July. And of course, there was a lot of trouble with this. There was a lot of trouble with this. I was getting very heated on this channel. I was being very outspoken about the fact that Screen Factory absolutely botched the rollout of this release. You know, they were releasing in Best Buy a week early. People from Amazon, pre-order from Amazon, were getting them before people that pre-ordered from Screen Factory. There was a lot of controversy with the rollout of this release. And putting that aside, when I actually got these beautiful Halloween 4Ks in my hands, and I got to put them in my 4K player, and I got to experience all 5 of them back to back to back, it was one of the most enjoyable experiences of the entire year, just as far as like watching physical media. It was probably one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had, honestly, since I've started collecting. I had so much fun going back and rewatching these movies in 4K and then getting on here and talking about them with you guys. Of course, I started with 4 and 5, then I watched 3, then I watched 1 and 2. I was having a hell of a time because 4 and 5 I had never seen beyond DVD. So I really enjoyed rewatching these movies in the best possible format. My God, did Screen Factory do such a great job with these releases. Halloween, this was a much better transfer. It was much more colorful, much more vibrant than the Lionsgate release that came out previously. This Halloween 2 looked absolutely great as well. Halloween 3 was a real standout, guys. This looked so good with like those colorful masks and stuff. Halloween 4 looked fantastic. Halloween 5, which isn't by far the worst of these movies, I still enjoy it. I thought this looked fantastic as well. Such great releases. And again, these are number 1, despite the fact that I was missing the Blu-ray for Halloween 4 and I still don't have it yet. I've reached out to Screen Factory. I'm in process of trying to get it now. But even though I was missing the Blu-ray, there was obviously problems with the rollout of this. These are still my number 1 because watching these on 4K was the most enjoyable experience I've had all year. So I had to put this in number 1. The transfers are great. There's a cool like extra special feature in 5 as well, as far as like the Doctor death sequence at the beginning. So yeah, the Halloween 4Ks, guys, had to put them in number 1. As far as like excitement, did they live up to my excitement? They absolutely did. There was problems. I was getting really frustrated on this channel, if you guys remember. But when I finally got them in my hands, I was so happy. I was just so happy with them. And I just love the release. So it is my number 1. Again, I know 5 movies, but this is my list, guys. 5 movies were my number 1 4K release of 2021. So again, guys, what are your top 10 4K releases of 2021? Leave it in that comment section below. Also, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more physical media-based content like this video, guys. And be sure to turn on those bell notifications for all future videos. And we'll see you next time.